Welcome back to another episode of Creating Magic. I'm Dani.
And I'm Paula.
And today we have Angel.
Hi.
Angel, why don't you introduce yourself?
So my name's Angel, and my handle on Instagram is Wizard of Main Street. And yeah, what else you guys want to know? I'm a teacher.
You're a teacher, you're a gamer,
Yes.
you're at multiple versions of castles.
That's true. Yes.
He's always at the wrong castle.
I'm always at the wrong one.
I don't know. It depends on who you ask. You are either at Hogwarts or Cinderella's castle. You can choose which you prefer. But also,
this one's Sleeping Beauty. This one's
Sleeping Beauty.
Yeah,
that's right.
Sleeping
You're
Beauty.
California. Sorry, I assumed I forgot that is Sleeping Beauty.
Yeah, ours is smaller.
I will see it someday. Maybe this summer we'll see. We'll find out on March 26th.
What's March 26th?
When D23 tickets release.
Oh, I should let Sabrina know.
Yeah, that's my determining factor if I will be in California or not, is if I have tickets.
Not Comic-Con?
Comic-Con is just at the wrong time of the year this year. Like, it's right around everything happening, and I've already had to give up a few things because everything is happening like back to back to back, and I can't.
Right.
Did they change it, the date?
Comic-Con has always been that like second week in July, the 17th, 20th.
Yeah, we're busy.
So like every summer it's always that one. And I know LeakyCon is July 4th this year.
Lit Ink is the weekend before. Right.
Yeah, I was like, I guess I'm not going to that one this year. So
there's just
one of these years I will make it to LeakyCon. 1 year.
1 year. We're not making it this year either. Well, I'm not. Dani, she says no, but that could change.
Honestly, a lot of my travels depend on if I'm going to California or not. So, but I will be at Lit Ink. All right. So today's episode, we are discussing A Court of Thorns and Roses.
Ooh.
So I am going to preface this. There will be spoilers of book 1.
Yes.
We will not go beyond book 1 because Paula has read book 1.
Only book 1.
Angel, you said you've read 1 and 2?
Yeah, 1 and 2.
And I'm on my second reread. That's almost finished because I'm on Silver Flames for my reread in preparation for Crescent City 3.
Okay. And there's 5, right? There's 5 books?
I'm not even close.
So far,
How many are there? How many
there's
are there?
5, but 4's like a little novella.
Right, yeah.
It's like a...
Sabrina said.
What's a novella? I know what a novella is, like Spanish novela, but I don't know what... When people say novella, are you only saying it like that because you don't speak Spanish or because that's what people in the reading world call it?
I don't know about if that's what people in the reading world call it, but it's like... It's essentially a short story, so it's not a full novel. Like, it's not thick. It's very short. Like, the Audible was 6 hours long. So...
It's still a book. It's just short.
Yeah, it's a shorter book, story. Especially compared to all the other books that are 15 plus hours.
Yeah.
So it's really short. It's kind of like, and some people are like, you don't have to read it. I enjoyed the story. Like, is it my favorite? No, but it gives information that you need to set up for the following book, but doesn't have enough information to like piece them together. But Silver Flames, the perspectives, the point of view of the characters switch. So they can't really like put them all together because you need that information to get to Silver Flame.
Because like in the last 9 days, now that I'm a reader, I've heard the word novella several times. And I'm like, what the hell is, like, obviously I'm Latina, so I know what a novella is. So, you know, it's a short story in TV format that you watch with your grandmother.
Yeah. I mean, and it's the same thing too, though, right? Like a novella is just a story, but then every episode is just a little short piece of that story, right? So I think it's the same. I think it's the same thing. Yeah.
I wasn't trying to be rude.
No, it essentially is. So here's a visual comparison. This is A Court of Wings and Ruin.
Yeah, it's the third one, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
So this is...
That looks more my style book right there. Like, maybe I'm a novella reader.
It is. Let's see how many pages this is. Okay, it's like Oh, that's acknowledgements. That's not even it.
Let's estimate. Let's say that's
229 pages.
229?
Yeah.
Wow.
So that is kind of the comparison. And some say you don't have to read it. I think it's worth it because you kind of gain some insight to where the characters are at once you get into Silver Flame.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you, Dani, because Sabrina says, "Yeah, no, you don't even have to read it. It doesn't give anything to the plot or something."
So it doesn't. So if you don't read it, you're not missing anything.
You're not necessarily missing anything, but it is some character building that helps fuel what's going on in Silver Flames.
Okay.
I advise reading it at least once. If you don't want to read it on the read-throughs, that's your own choice. But I think if you are reading the series for the first time, yes, you should read it.
Yes, okay. I plan to.
So and like it's wild to me for someone to be like, I'm gonna skip this middle book just because it's short. Like to me, that's crazy talk.
And and the reason I had considered skipping it was because over the winter break, I was going through I read Fourth Wing, Iron Flame, all in the span of a week, and then Sabrina was like, pick up A Court of Thorns and Roses, pick it up because the new Crescent City's coming out, and she kept trying to get me to read it forever, and I've picked it up and put it down 3 times, and I finally over the winter break I committed to it and didn't put it down in 2 or 3 days and finished it. It was kind of hard, but like I was telling Paula, the first one, you just kind of had to get through it. For me, at least, it kind of felt a little bit. I thought it was still kind of cool though. The whole when do we say spoilers for the first book now?
Oh, I mean, now we already gave we can warn again. There are spoilers on this episode for book one.
I'm about to spoil again. All right, the whole Amarantha fighting series, the 3 challenges kind of thing, that whole thing was exciting to me. I thought. The first bit was kind of hard to get through, but once we got to that kind of piece, I was like, oh, okay, this book is pretty cool, right?
That for me is what pissed me off.
What?
End 3, that thing at the end where she either had to get the riddle or the thing, and I knew while I was reading it, I was like, this chick, I was gonna say something else, is gonna get the riddle after she doesn't need it anymore. Sure enough. But I'll tell you what, ever since I read it, now that people know I've read it, they've sent me a bajillion memes.
Memes? Yeah.
Yeah. Of just what's his name? I'm so bad with these names. Basically the guy where she's, she can't read. So she's trying to read the thing and he's like, just pick one.
Oh,
that part I was like, oh my God. She can't read.
The one who was chained up, right?
Yeah. Is it Lucian? It's Lucian, right?
Lucian, yeah. Lucian.
Lucian is the metal eye.
Lucian. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, just the whole thing. And then, when she went back and her sister basically knew.
Nesta, yeah.
Nesta knew everything. And it's so you knew everything. I wasn't mad because I was like, okay, so you knew everything that happened, basically where you were is kind of how I read it. She knew, but she didn't really do anything about it until this time. Oh, I need to help you now, I guess.
Hold on.
Because at the beginning when you're reading it, you're like, this chick.
Right, but I thought in that first book, didn't she hire the mercenary to go out to look at the wall for her? I thought she did do something about it.
Nesta,
but I felt
initial trying, but
yeah, she just went to go try to see, let's go see if we find them, and they went to the wall, but then they abandoned.
I had trouble because at the beginning I hated her. I was like, oh,
wait,
you're
Feyre
the worst.
Oh, Nesta. Okay, yes,
yeah.
Nesta's her favorite, and that's all I'm going to leave it at.
Yeah.
That's what Sabrina says too, that Nesta's her favorite. So, or that she's a really good character. I'm like, okay.
She's a great character. I hated her in the beginning.
I think pretty much everybody at the beginning has to hate her.
I realized the reason I hate her is because she thinks like me.
Oh, great.
Oh, wow. Okay. I guess that's more of a spoiler for Paula than for me.
Not necessarily, because it's internal monologue. But okay. I understand her on a different level. And when I read it, I went, Oh shit, that's why I like her so much now and why I hated her so much in the beginning. It's because I get her.
So what do you think, Paula, overall of the first read through? Like what
I get the hype.
Yeah,
I get the hype.
People say it's hard to get through. Like, what did you think about all that?
Oh, I had a hard time, but again, I have a hard time in general. I finished it on the Kindle. I have the physical book. I got it on the Libby app, and that's how I finished it. I finished the book on the Kindle while I was listening to it as well. I cannot listen to a book just like sit and listen. I'll fall asleep. So I'm physically like reading. It's like almost like reading out loud, but in my head with the thing playing.
Absolutely
acceptable
for the second.
But I had a hard time. I mean, I put it down a lot. I think I started it in I want to say it was October, like beginning of October. It was right after I finished the sixth or the fifth Bridgerton book, Francesca's story. It was like the next book I picked up after that. But I had a hard time. I was like, this is rough. I couldn't listen to Fourth Wing either. Like, I was like, this is not my thing.
A lot of people have issues with the person who actually reads Fourth Wing on the audio.
Yes, that I've heard.
Yeah. All right.
And have you ever tried listening to it like quicker, like speeding it up or anything?
Yes. So when I'm reading it at the same time as listening to it, I'm at like a 1.4.
Okay.
Not like I can't do 2 times because it's like
right,
like an auction.
But then if you do that, you're already like, partway through the book, technically.
Yeah, but then I'm not picking up anything. I already have trouble picking stuff up as it is.
Right.
Retention wise. Like I've posted a couple of them. Like I could read a book, love a book, and not know anything that happened in that book. Just because I just don't have the retention.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember some things.
And who was your favorite character? Like, now that you read the first one so far, who's your
I think I like Lucian.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Is it because
I think at the beginning he seemed kind of like a jerk. And then at the end you knew that he like cared for her.
I think they're good best friends. They're a fun best friend duo how I imagine them.
Yeah, because he still gives her like
the snark. I love the
exactly
the attitude. I'm like, yeah, this is a friendship here.
So, but other than that, I'm excited to get into the next one because people say it's easy. It's easier to read. It's more exciting.
Way better.
I have a question from Wizard of Main Street when we since you said Lucian. Did you visualize Mad Eye Moody as a Weasley when they describe Lucian?
No, but I am now.
That's who I saw. Although he was supposed to be good looking or something, I was like, that's who I saw in my head. I saw
Mad Eye Moody with red hair.
With red hair, yeah.
I really appreciated that. I have some good questions here.
I wish it didn't take me that long to get through it, just because it took me a long time.
And that's another question from Wizard of Main Street. What do you recommend to people struggling to get through the first book?
Right.
Listen to it and read it at the same time. That's the only suggestion I have for you. And just get through it. To me, obviously, the end is the best part. Like, it's the most exciting part to me. Like, obviously, like the description of the worlds and stuff like that is cool, but like where it gets like, like is at the end, with that whole
that is actually
Triwizard tournament at the end.
That the reading and listening at the same time is actually like something that I have recommended to my friends with young kids when they start reading and have no interest in reading, is doing both, because unlike Paula and I, as we have said, is that our comprehension is pretty low. Because we go through things. I think mine comes from, I was a speed reader as a kid, and I always just devoured books that I would lose like any of the juice the book, I'd forget like half the stuff that happened.
I mean, even Harry Potter, I've read Harry Potter several times. And when we did that reread for Sarah on first year's pod, when
that was just one chapter.
Chapters, huh?
What,
It was 2 chapters.
2 chapters.
It was 2 chapters. When I went into it, I was like, okay. I was excited because this is my favorite book. So I was like, all right. But when I got to it, I was like, why is she making this chapter? It's basically when they go into the ministry. So I had to relive Sirius Black. It was pretty bad. But I was like, oh, this is horrible. Why would she do this to us? Anyway, but at that point when I picked it up, I was like, oh, I'm not, and I even read like a little bit before. I didn't only just read those chapters. So many of the things, like the size of the like their visitors badges, like all that stuff. I was like, oh damn, this is so little. Like
huge discussion about the visitors badges.
Yeah. There's just like a lot of things that I know I read it, but it didn't stick.
Right. And I wonder now, like, Dani, you've read the whole series. Like, I'm assuming there's stuff in the first one that like hints at things they come back to. Cause like, I'm thinking about the second one because I've read the second one, right? And in the second one, you know, things happen and there's a lot that's referenced that happens in the first one.
Yes.
And you're like, oh my gosh, right? Like, wow, at least for me. But without giving any spoilers to Paula, like there's a bunch of stuff that you've already read that gets referenced again in the second one. And it's like, oh my gosh. And really awesome. I'm going to leave it as awesome.
Really awesome.
I'm not going to use another word. I'm not going to use another word. I'm just going to choose the word
I
awesome.
am in a SJM Universe group chat. And a few of us have been doing rereads, and then whenever we find like a little thing that like pops out to us, we throw it in the chat. We're like, do you think this means this? Because we're all like in conspiracy mode, knowing another book of Crescent City is coming out.
I hope that one day I can do that, but I just cannot see myself reading something and being like, oh my God, could this mean this? Like,
I remember doing that with the Harry Potter books.
Yeah.
Like before the Snape, is Snape good or evil? I remember. And like one of the theories I solidly remember as a kid, and since like book 3, I was like, something's up with Neville. Neville's going to do something. Like I was very like set. I'm like, no, because Neville was also born in July. Like I remember being that kid and they're like, it's Harry Potter. I'm like, no, Neville's going to do something because this and this. I love Neville from the beginning.
Me too.
I mean, I guess that brings me to another question now too, Paula. I'm thinking based on your first read, like, you know, there's 4 more books.
So far.
3 if you don't count the other one. Yeah, so far. If you don't count the novella, then 3. But what do you think? Because if I remember, the book kind of ends. The first book ends like on a very nice, happy.
It's very fairy tale.
Yeah. So what do you? So like
very Beauty and the Beast equivalent.
Yeah. And it is, right. It's like it mirrors that, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. That's what Rudy had told me that, and I was like, oh, it did not even at no point was I like, oh, this is never. Yeah, it did end kind of. You know, when I was reading it, I thought of that scene at the end of Little Mermaid.
Oh,
you know, where like everybody's waving by, like, it was very like, oh, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. I have no idea. I don't have, I haven't seen like any spoilers for it, or I do know that it's spicier than the first one, even though the first one doesn't really have that. To me, it's not spicy at all.
Just wait till Silver Flames.
Yeah.
Okay. Wait, what's that? That's the 4th? Is that the novella?
That's the last one that's out currently.
Oh, the last one. Okay.
You're far from that, Angel.
Yeah, I'm far from that. Are you saying currently though, Dani? Are you saying there's plans to go to extend the series? Do you know, or is those rumored?
So there's rumor, and also Silver Flames is from the point of view of Nesta. We don't have Elaine's point of view, so there's another sister.
Right, you're right. That's right.
So we have all of Thera's stories from her point of view. Silver Flames brings in Nesta's, but we don't have Elaine's.
Right. I remember Sabrina mentioning that now too. She said that
Are we talking about the spelling of Feyre? It is. At no point was I like, oh, this is how you say this. I felt like Hermione all over again.
Well, you know what I was hoping is that they would put pronunciation. She put pronunciation things in the first book at the end, but not in the second. And there were a couple more. There were a couple.
Pronunciations will be in the front before you start reading. By the way, don't put them in the back. Put them in the front so I can see that they're there.
Right. Yeah. But in the first one, they're in the back, right?
I'm not sure. And my first book is in the other room.
Hold on, I have it. Give me a second.
Okay. I'm pretty sure.
There's none in that one.
No.
I'm
looking at.
With me.
There's none in the second. I'll tell you that because I looked. I was like, oh, who is this? Who's this character?
Yeah, they don't have it in Court.
Is that in the back?
Yeah, I think so. I'm pretty sure it's in the back. And look in the back pages. Like at the end of the story, there's a little pronunciation guide or something, and it's just for Lucian, Rysand, and it's not even pronounced Rysand. Sabrina pronounces it. Yeah, Sabrina pronounces it Rysand. So ever since I've read it that way. But Rysand, Feyre, Amarantha. But there's no pronunciation guide in the second one that I could find, and there's a couple new characters introduced. So, and who seem pretty critical. So,
names. I think we're striking.
I don't see it anywhere.
So maybe it doesn't have it.
Well, the ebook I have had it at the end, so that's why I was just. I was curious.
That may have been added later on.
Yeah, but yeah. So, what's your most memorable scene, Paula, that you remember from from the first book? What was like a scene that stuck out?
I mean, when she at the very beginning, when she kills that is it a werewolf?
Animagus or Animagus?
The sheep Animagus guy.
Animagus.
I felt like the description was very like graphic. I was like, what? It was a little much for me. I would take a dirty sex scene over the killing of a beast.
Which, spoiler alert, guess it wasn't a beast, right?
Right, exactly. Right. But like that whole, I think that's like the thing that stuck out the most for me. But it was mostly because I was like, ooh, I didn't like.
Yeah, and that's still like it didn't like the spark first joy for me. Thing that happens in the series, like graphic.
That what? I didn't hear. I'm sorry.
Yeah, like that's the first big thing that really happens.
Right.
The description really goes into it.
And then the whole thing like that while she was gone, basically her family's like rich now. Because when she leaves, they're basically like dirt poor.
Mm-hmm.
And she's the one that's like going out and like feeding, which I didn't understand either. Like, why are the two sisters not doing anything? I was like, what is happening here?
And Feyre's not even the oldest one, and Nesta's the oldest, right?
Yeah, Feyre's the youngest.
Elaine's the youngest, which is the weird. Yeah, I was like, what? What is
Elaine
this?
came off a little bit bola to me, like
she came. You know who I visualized when they described Elaine? The girl from Mean Girls, the blonde one, but the you know which one I'm talking about from Mean Girls?
Is it Karen Smith?
Maybe, I don't know. I'm not good with names. Yes,
it is Karen Smith.
Yes, Karen Smith. Yes,
Elaine to me kind of had like youngest child vibes, even though
she wasn't the youngest.
Not the youngest, but she has like. I always have to remind myself that Feyre is the youngest because Elaine comes off as a youngest to me.
Right. I was just like I kept thinking Feyre was the oldest and she was protecting her two younger sisters, but it's not. It's not the case. Yeah.
I was like, what is this? Why is this like this? I just had, and like I said, at the beginning, I had like a whole lot of trouble just reading it in general, just because it was reading. But I was just like, why are they like this? I hated Nesta and I thought Elaine was boa. And the dad, I was just like, dude, I didn't like him either.
Yeah, the dad, I always thought the dad was pretty, I don't know, abusive and like neglectful, right?
Like, I was like, okay, dude, your leg hurts or what? Just die already. Like, cool. You're not useful in this story.
The thing like that got me about that is like he didn't work because he was injured, but he used to run a business, so it wasn't like he was doing manual labor.
Right.
Like, dude had like some skill running a business. So he didn't need to go out and like chop wood to do work. Like, I'm sure he could have found some other type of job. But
yeah, I did not like her entire family. I was like, you're better off living with these people from another world.
Yeah, leave.
But when she came back and like Nesta was all like, I went to look for you, and I was like, oh, look at you trying to make me like you.
You know what I have a hard time visualizing is how good Feyre paints. Like if
okay,
like I
theory.
The way to describe it, I'm like, she must paint like a toddler.
There's this theory, and it makes me laugh. I don't think it's actually true, just because of what other comments have been made throughout the other books. But there's this huge theory that the biggest plot twist in all these books is that Feyre is a horrible painter and nobody will tell her.
That's what I'm thinking.
When parents are like, "Oh, you're so
great,
so beautiful." I'm gonna put it right here,
right? And like, let me frame that.
But my problem is just because, like, and this is not a spoiler, like in later books, she's still painting and like hanging things where she lives. And in my head, I always think of that theory, and I'm like, oh, these poor people have all her artwork everywhere in the house, and she's a horrible painter. I'm like, that's not actually true. Like, it's just a funny theory. But like, whenever they talk about like that she hung a painting somewhere, I'm like, oh, 5-year-old's drawing.
Yeah, like that's what I'm just painting. Trying to. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what it sounded like in their little hut, right? Like she painted.
It did sound like that.
Yeah, swirlies around the table or the door frame, things like that. But I'm like,
this sounds just like a toddler that went crazy with a Sharpie.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
It sounds like that. I don't believe that theory is actually true, because she later on has some abilities that I think reflect on her abilities as a painter and noticing things.
Oh, okay.
So until we reach that, she paints like a 5-year-old to us. But.
Well, like I grew up as an art student. I was always in the art hall. So like when this power manifests, I kind of go, well, she notices things, so this makes sense for her to be able to do this visually.
Okay.
My favorite question that Angel submitted.
Angel's the only one that submitted questions.
No, I have other ones. But the way Angel worded his questions is the best. What are your thoughts on Poppy Dark Knight?
Poppy Dark Knight?
Rhysand. Yeah, come on.
Rhysand.
Oh. Poppy. Okay. I was thinking Poppy like the flower, or like Poppy like the troll, and I was like, oh no, but it's Poppy. Okay, I got you. I don't know. I felt I at first I didn't want to think he was like bad. I don't know why. I was like, oh, is he like, like he just looks like the bad guy, but maybe he's not. I don't know. I just had like this. I kind of liked him. And like at the end when he was like helping her, but he was helping her for him, really.
Right, yeah.
I was like, oh, that was nice-ish.
Nice adjacent.
Nice adjacent, exactly. Yeah, I don't know. I'm very interested to see. I'm interested to see what happens, because, like I said, it was hard for me to get through this book. I'm hoping that the others are not that hard to get through.
Yeah.
Because I felt like at the beginning, I was like, get to something.
I think halfway through book 2.
I think sooner than that. Sooner, because remember Rhysand's deal.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like
about the once a month thing?
Once a month thing, right? And so like
when that kicks in, when that
happens very early on in the book too. It happens they're like book 2 starts, and that deal still comes into effect, and it happens pretty early on, and I think ever since then
I listened to it recently, so I didn't like mark where it was in the book.
We're gonna keep the group chat, so as I go through it, I'm gonna drop stuff in there, so I can. It'll be like a living document of my reading, because by the time I get to the end, I'll be.
I'm telling you, Paula. There's the app I saw on TikTok that I shared with Sabrina, and she got it. But I think you need to have like friends on the app. It's called I think the Story Graph.
The Story Graph,
right? And you're reading, and you make a comment like so. I can make a comment when he comes to collect his deal in the second book, like, oh, Paula, can you believe blah, 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 but you won't be able to see it until you mark that you've gotten to that part in the book on the app. So like
I need to look into that, because our friend Sarah Veritasirum, when she read the Throne of Glass series, we were like messaging back and forth because we were both reading different books. She read Tandem. She did Throne of Glass as the tandem read, and I did the regular read. So
right. And do you know and Paula, did you know that? Like, I didn't. Sabrina was telling me that there's a part of the series, the Throne of Glass series, that you can read at the same, or two books you can read at the same time, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. So
in Throne of Glass, there's two books. And that's where I read it straight through like publication. Sarah read it tandem. So these two books happen at the same set of times, but they're following different characters in the story, because in the book before, the characters like split off, but they're overlapping. And it looked, when I read it, it was a little confusing. Like, oh, this is the same time period. So someone has actually made a chart where you go through and you mark your book and you jump back and forth between those two books because they're occurring at the same time.
Okay.
Essentially in separate places with separate characters, but
at the same time,
the exact same.
So you read them separately? You read one and then the other?
Yes. And then Sarah
followed the chart.
Yeah.
Oh, that seems like a lot.
It does. I can barely handle one.
It's a lot. Like, if you prepare for it, like, I don't know how it would work with like the audiobook, but like, I believe what Sarah did was, before she even started, she took like sticky notes and went through the chart and marked when she was supposed to switch books in each book. So she'd get to a tab and go, okay. And it would be like, go to chapter 3 of the other book. And then that mark go back. So she just followed the, like, pre-marked it. So you didn't have to be like looking at your page, like, do I switch yet?
Right.
How would that work on Kindle? I don't know.
You have to. Does Kindle bookmark it?
Kindle, but you wouldn't be able to mark it that way. So that'll be a little harder.
But Kindle has bookmarks. You can bookmark it, right?
They do, but it's not something that would like pop up to say, hey, you need to switch to the other book now.
Yeah.
I mean, I read slow enough that I could probably be like, oh, I need to stop here.
Yeah. And it's at each chapter. It's not like the second paragraph down on page 42. It's chapter separated. So
did the books come out at the same time?
No. And that's why people read them in publication order.
Okay.
But they're just different time periods, because essentially two of the main characters split off to different sections of the world.
Okay.
So one part of it, you're following Aileen, who is the main character in the series, and then Kale and her split off, and you follow Kale to continue his journey.
Kale. I read Nicole's comment, Nicolette's comment about Kale. She was like, I can't believe that this is how this is pronounced, Kale.
Yeah, she was... Someone released a video of how to pronounce all the names in Throne of Glass recently, and Nicolette was very upset on the pronunciations of some of the names, like Manon, because I guess people call her Manon, which I had never like crossed my mind. So please include ways to say people's names in all books.
For real.
Right, for real. I mean, I called Feyre Fairy. I was like, okay, Fairy.
Yeah, Fairy. I was like, that when we were reading, because I was reading it with Rudy, Anne, and Chanel. We do like a read aloud, so we read to each other. And Rudy was like, "Oh, it's Feyre," and I was like, "What?" I was like, "I don't care what you say, but this is not Feyre. Feyre maybe, but not."
So Chanel said she was going to start book 2 in February. Is that what?
Yeah, she is. Yeah.
You guys are all starting it together?
I think we're just gonna read it separate. Maybe Rudy and I might read it together. Okay. But Chanel has like goals. Yeah. You know, she has like a two book a month goal. And I was like, I don't think I could finish a book in a month, but maybe I can. I don't know.
You just read like 4 in 9 days.
They don't count. They're very small.
They count, but an ACOTAR.
I am almost done with Red, White, and Royal Blue. I love it.
I think they count.
So we will bring everyone back together and include Chanel on book 2.
Yes.
Oh man, that's going to be so great. I loved book 2. I'm telling you, Paula, you're going to love book 2. You're just going to love it. I think you're going to love it. You're going to love it. I loved when they call back to certain things in book 1, like that you think were like not significant at the time. But there's just this one whole chapter where they're calling back specific instances of book 1. And you know how you said earlier, like, oh, but I don't really remember little specific things like that. I think you will when they mention them.
When they bring it up, yeah.
They bring it up like, yeah, that did happen in book 1, and all those things. And for me, book 2 was, I was reading, and I read faster than the audiobook. I tried doing the audiobook because I was the same. Like I tried doing that, but ever since the doctorate program, like you just need to get through a bunch of papers. Like you just learn to skim really fast. Yeah. So just a survival thing. And so I started reading it faster. So I stopped. But when I would have to do laundry, cook, wash the dishes or something like that, I'd pop in the audiobook to listen to it. And because I wanted to know what was happening next. Like that, I think that's just how good book 2 is.
Okay. Like I didn't feel that in this book. I did not feel like,
yeah, book 1's very much like a setup, introduce the characters, let's have this happy fairy tale until book 2.
Right.
Until book 2.
That's how
where the shit really goes down.
Yes.
Halfway.
It does.
Halfway.
It starts.
It starts. The shit starts.
Because then when you get to book 3, you're like, oh wow, that was very basic. Like
I will tell you, I didn't get like any like crying moments.
Right.
I didn't feel anything like that at all. Like not even when she was killing that poor person that didn't have to die because because she did know the riddle.
But she was part of it. Like she had to hate them though. She had to hate them or whatever, right? Like wasn't that the whole part of the thing, the curse that she had to kill somebody. She had to kill one of them. So.
Yeah. But if she would have known the riddle, she didn't have to. And she did. I was like, right when she had to like kill them, I was like, she's gonna figure out the riddle right now.
Angel's thinking of the initial curse.
The wolf.
Discussing the 3 fairies in the under the mountain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that did kind of suck. Did you figure out the riddle before? I was like, I think the riddle's this, but that's just because I think it's like some.
Oh no, I am awful with riddles. So I would have had to like just
everyone's
let
dead.
It go. Everybody's dying. I'm not gonna figure out this riddle. Like I wouldn't have even tried because I suck at riddles. So I would have just been like, I'm just gonna have to just get it over with. But for me, when I was reading this, when I knew that there was like a riddle that could get her out of it, I was like, she's gonna know the riddle after she doesn't need to anymore. And when I realized that in that last one that she had to kill someone, I was like, she's gonna figure it out right after she kills us. And lo and behold, she did, and I was so pissed.
All right. Any other comments about book 1 or thoughts on going into book 2?
Book 2 book 1, I don't really have many thoughts. Like I said, it didn't give me like, oh, I need to keep reading so I can figure out until the very end. At the beginning, I was just like, I felt it was very slow for me. And I read slow, so there was nothing inspiring me to keep going.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that for book 2, that's different. And I'm assuming it is because obviously people love it. So
yeah. And everybody keeps saying their favorite one, or at least Sabrina. I don't know about you, Dani, but Sabrina's favorite is the 3rd one. So
is which one?
The 3rd one.
That is
Wings of Ruin.
okay. That's this one.
Yeah, that one.
The pink one.
The pink one. It's
that book looks huge.
I was thinking about this the other day.
It's the biggest one. It's the biggest one.
On the sides.
They have what?
They need the number so I know what order they go in.
Right.
Because when I'm pulling up my Audible, it doesn't tell you which number it is. So I have to keep like Googling to make sure I'm jumping to the correct book.
Yeah.
So in the second one, I'm hoping that it's more like, okay, let me keep reading because I want, there's. Go ahead.
I was going to say, what was interesting is every time, because Sabrina already read them all, right? And she's like, oh, you're going to get to this, you're going to get to this. But I didn't get to it in the first one. She's like, wait, this didn't happen there? I was like, no. So I knew like some things, but.
I had a mental check the end of book 1 before we did this to be like, where did this book stop?
Right.
And that's why I wanted Angel to be on, because Angel hasn't read too far along.
Yeah.
And I felt like it would be easier to keep it.
Yeah,
I think like if you had a whole bunch of other people that have read everything already, it's very hard to keep track of what happened where.
Yeah, I had thought that, and this isn't like a super spoiler because we've talked about it. I thought Rhysand's bargain came in book 1 at the end of book 1. Yeah. In my head, it ended on a cliffhanger with the bargain coming into play, but did not.
Yeah.
So like book 1 ends without like any like real cliffhangers. You're like,
I am interested to see what that entails,
Yeah. It's great.
Because I felt like he was evil nice. I don't know. So I was like, what's gonna happen? Is this gonna be like what is it? Enemies to lovers? Like that kind of like I was like, is something gonna happen? Is something gonna happen?
Right. And I'm trying to think about like the book 2, when you said you didn't have a very like incentive to keep reading. I think book 2 does do that. And you said, I didn't get I didn't cry or I didn't get an emotional reaction to this book. For me, I mean, I don't think I cried in book 2 or anything, but I got emotional reactions to certain like events. I was like, what? Like, you're telling me this?
I didn't have anything like that except at the end when she figured out the riddle. I was like, I knew it. Hansel was like, what's wrong? And I was like, just never mind. I don't have time to explain this to you. I knew it was going to happen.
Not this series, but Crescent City, the end of book 2, the amount of messages whenever someone reads it for the first time, because the ending of that is like what the crap just happened? I got so many messages from people as they read that last scene. And it came out a year ago. That's why everyone's so excited for the next book, because the way it ended was very visceral. And we're all like messaging each other. We're like, did you get there yet? Like I have messaged Shelly from Conquest Journals being like, are you there yet? Are you there? When she was reading them.
So she's read them all.
No, I don't think she was hopping between a few different series because she was reading with her daughter, I believe.
Okay.
So I don't know if she's actually finished them. So we'll have to check with her where she is. You're talking to her tonight. You should just ask.
I know. I am going to ask her tonight.
I'll
be like, no spoilers.
Throne of Glass is my favorite series of the 3 Massverse series that are
so
out.
What are all of them? Like
there's Throne of Glass, the ACOTAR series, and then Crescent City.
Okay.
And then
the order is these first?
There is no formal order.
Oh. Lovely.
A lot of people
TikTokers say though. I was going to say a bunch of TikTokers say like ACOTAR first.
No, I would. Oh. It's debatable. I personally would read.
No.
Okay.
Ravenclaw against Ravenclaw. Watch out.
This
I didn't say I haven't read them.
If there wasn't a new book coming out next week, and this will release after the book is already out, Throne of Glass, ACOTAR, Crescent City. Coming up to Crescent City 3, when people hadn't read any of her stuff, I was telling them to skip Throne of Glass because you don't need that quite yet, but you want ACOTAR as a reference for Crescent City. But
timeline-wise, does this happen before or no?
timeline wise, we've recently found out that Throne of Glass and ACOTAR are happening around the same time frame.
Oh, okay.
Crescent City, we're not quite sure. Based on Crescent City's more modern. I struggled a little with Crescent City because I like a older fairy tale, but in Crescent City they have like cell phones and stuff. So we think that's future-ish.
Yeah.
Or like, I guess further in the future because they don't even 90s. Have showers in ACOTAR, so it's all bathtubs.
How big are these?
They don't even have showers.
Yeah, it's all bathtubs.
That's funny.
So Crescent City is definitely more modern times. And that's why I struggled with Crescent City 1 is because I live in a Lord of the Rings type of time period fandom.
You're a cozy hobbit.
Yeah.
Kind of.
But what's interesting about the Crescent City thing, and this is kind of why I was hesitant and I started with ACOTAR, is that I learned through reading fantasy, I do not like unfinished series. I do not like being left like
my friend won't start them until the whole series is
right. Like I shouldn't have done it with Iron Flame with our Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. Like I finished Iron Flame and I was like this is why I don't like doing books that aren't stories that aren't done, because then you're left wondering like, well, what's going to happen next, right? And then you're looking at when's the author going to publish, and the author's like, oh, I'm going to try a different project for now, right? Like I need a break.
I've spent my entire life
what? You cannot have a break.
Yeah, I was like, you owe me the ending.
My entire life waiting on authors to release books. Like I'm just used to it now, and I can't wait.
I can't live like that.
I can't live like that. I can't let someone else spoil a book for me. Like that's just not acceptable. Like even like
I honestly think if somebody spoiled a book for me, my retention is so bad that I would forget that they spoiled the book. So
there's this news story from years ago about some scientific researchers that were in Antarctica. And one of them stabbed the other guy because the other guy kept reading the end of his books and spoiling it. And that would have probably been my reaction.
I mean, in Antarctica, you probably have not much to do. So
yeah, don't spoil
stabbing's probably a form of entertainment. I don't know.
I'm not okay with spoiled books. Even like theories for the most part, like there's a few theories I have seen. I don't go searching for theories. I discuss like theories with my friends, but I don't go like down the rabbit hole of the theories people have unless they're my own and my friends, because I don't want other people's opinions in my head.
Don't talk with Jude. Wow. Jude loves, you know what Jude does? Jude spends most of his day watching film theory, like theories like things that happen in movies that connect, or it's like his.
Has he gone
obsession.
Down the Pixar theory?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's one of my favorites.
But yeah. And I'm like, you can't tell people stuff like that because that could ruin it. He's like, but that's what it is. Jude is horrible. Jude will ruin a movie for you. He will spoil it.
Jude is the origin story of so many villains. Like he is going to be the reason villains are created, and people are going to be like, where did these villains, like where did their story start? And it's all going to link back to Jude as the mastermind of the villain uprising.
I agree. It's so bad. All
right, anyway. So
well, I mean, luckily ACOTAR though is like a complete series, which is why because I remember Sabrina had
look. She's going no.
Well, right. We don't have Elaine's perspective yet, I guess, but like
look at her. She's like,
she said ACOTAR is done, right? And I remember Sabrina reading it. I think it was in 2022. 2022. She was telling me about it, and she's like, "You're not going to read this, right?" I was like, "No, I'm not gonna. Just tell me about it." So she told me about when Feyre like had died, and then they brought her back to life with their little droplet twinkles, right? And so I was like, droplet twinkles. So I was like, yeah. I was like, that's great. That's cool. So, I mean, that sounds fun. But I know she's told me a bunch of stuff. And like, there's just like, now that every time I get there, I was like, oh, wait, Sabrina told me about this. But I can't say anything else because, Paula, you got to read the book too.
Yeah. Tread lightly.
But in terms of everything that she's told me, like those are the two biggest things like I kind of remember.
I can't wait.
I know she's told me
this conversation into a future episode and just be like, oh, you sweet summer child.
Oh, you sweet summer child.
All right. So let's get ready to wrap up a little. Let's start with what are you currently reading? Let's do that. Like actively reading, first. Not You're on your list. Like, what are you actively reading?
Me first?
Yes.
Yeah. So I actually started the third one. I want to say yesterday. So Sabrina, I mean, if you've seen Sabrina goes to Barnes and Noble and buys like a library because she's a book dragon. No, there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely. But I'm sitting there waiting like 45 minutes to an hour while she's looking through every aisle. So I just picked it up. I said, you know what? Let me pick it up. And while I was reading the second one, Paula, because I'm telling you, it's a good one. Every Barnes and Noble, I took her to, nobody had the second one. So I couldn't pick it up to pick up where I left off. I was so mad. And I didn't want to pick up the third one. Anyway, what I'm currently reading is the third one of the ACOTAR series, which you held it up. What is it? Wings and Ruin?
Wings and Ruin.
Wings and Ruin. And so I started it yesterday when we were at Barnes and Noble. I let Sabrina look and I sat there for like 30 minutes and got to chapter 3. So that's where I'm at right now.
Paula?
Is that me? Okay, so I am reading Red, White, and Royal Blue, which has nothing to do with ACOTAR. I am going to start the second one probably in February along with Chanel and Rudy. I am simultaneously reading Heartstopper, but it's like a graphic novel, so it's like a comic book basically, but it's so cute and I think everybody should check it out.
It counts.
I'm reading the third volume right now. I did 1 and 2 yesterday. I'm on like 8 books.
I'm
24.
I love it.
But they're short books, but I'm halfway done with Red, White, and Royal Blue. And I love my Kindle. Kindle should sponsor us.
I also love my Kindle. I am currently reading A Court of Silver Flames. And then I am also reading One Wrong Move by Dani Petrie, which will release on February 6th.
Oh.
So,
nice.
Angel, where can we find you on the socials?
You can find me on Instagram at Wizard of Main Street and on TikTok at the same.
Are you still streaming video games?
No, I haven't streamed. Gosh, since when?
Come back, we need you.
I know I want to stream again, but it's just I never have time anymore. And I thought I was going to stream during break, but I ended up reading.
We'll see you in the summer
instead.
Yeah, in the summer.
We'll see.
Paula, where can we find you?
You can find me at Unconceivable on TikTok, Instagram, Threads. You can find me obviously on Creating Magic Podcast on Instagram. Dani runs the TikTok page, so you'll find her there. And what else? Oh, you can find my planner page on @MoreThanFavors on Instagram. And I think that's it. Did I miss anything?
I don't think.
You can find me on Goodreads, but I don't know how to share my username.
We'll teach you. You'll post it in a story.
I did, but I guess I'm posting it wrong, so
we'll figure it out.
I'm old.
And then you can find me on Creating Magic Podcast on the gram and at Mandrakes and Mischief. So until next time,
keep creating.